There is absolutely nothing blocking you, and I need you to hear that not as motivation, but as a precise description of how reality actually works. The life you've been trying to reach, the one filled with clarity, abundance, connection, fulfillment, it isn't being kept from you by some external force. It already exists, fully formed, inside a perfectly sealed system. And the reason it feels inaccessible is because you've been misunderstanding the nature of the lock itself. This is not a mindset trick. This is not positive thinking. This is the direct consequence of how observation functions at the most fundamental level of reality. Physics has already shown us this. Your world is not loosely defined or randomly shifting. It is stabilized, held in place, made real through the simple act of your attention. The moment you look at something and define it as real, you participate in fixing it into form. Your awareness is not passive. It is the force that seals the structure. And over the next minutes, we're going to walk through the evidence behind this. Not just conceptually, but through the actual mechanics. How systems like the observer effect, wave function collapse, and the quantum Zeno effect reveal that your reality is not something you are trying to enter. It is something you're already inside of and actively maintaining from within. But before we go deeper into that, we need to acknowledge something real. Because what you've felt, the exhaustion, the frustration, the quiet burnout that comes from trying again and again to break through something that never seems to move, that experience is valid. That feeling of standing just outside your own life, watching it instead of living it, is real. You've done the work. You've set intentions. You've visualized, affirmed, scripted, repeated. And still, nothing changes. It feels like you're pushing against something invisible, something solid, something that refuses to give. That tension between knowing you are capable of more and seeing no evidence of it creates a very specific kind of fatigue. Not just physical, but psychological, existential. It makes you question the methods, and eventually, yourself. But what if none of that effort was wasted? What if the problem was never your discipline, your consistency, or your belief? What if you were trying to solve something that wasn't actually the problem? Think about that feeling, that invisible wall you keep running into. The one you can feel, but never quite define, never quite move through. If you've experienced that, then you already know how real it feels. And if the idea that there might be nothing to fight, nothing to break through, creates even the slightest sense of relief in you, then stay with that. Because the way reality works is not about forcing your way in. It is not about overcoming resistance or eliminating blocks. Let me show you what's actually happening. Imagine, for a moment, that everything you desire already exists. Your health, your freedom, your financial stability, your relationships, all of it contained within a structure that is completely sealed. A vault. Not fragile, not partial, but absolute. Solid. Perfectly engineered. For most of your life, you've believed you were standing outside that vault. You could see what was inside. You could feel it, but you couldn't access it. So you started searching for the combination. Every technique, every book, every teacher became a possible key. You listened carefully for any sign, any shift, any click that meant you were getting closer. You repeated affirmations, visualized outcomes, tried different methods, hoping that one of them would finally open the door. And slowly, without even realizing it, you became something else. A seeker, a problem solver, a spiritual safecracker, convinced that what you want is locked away from you, and that your job is to break in. That effort, that constant striving, has shaped your entire journey. It has defined how you see yourself and how you see reality. But here is where everything begins to change. Because the core assumption behind all of that effort is wrong. Completely wrong. You are not outside the vault. And the lock you've been trying to open was never designed to keep you out. It was designed to keep your reality stable. To understand how this lock actually works, we have to go deeper into one of the most unsettling, most foundational experiments ever conducted in modern physics. The double-slit experiment. On the surface, it seems simple, almost too simple. But what it reveals will change the way you perceive your entire existence. Imagine firing single electrons, tiny particles that make up everything you see, toward a barrier with two vertical slits. Now here's where it becomes strange. If you do not observe which slit the electron passes through, it doesn't behave like a solid particle at all. It behaves like a wave, a field of pure potential. It moves as if it passes through both slits simultaneously, interfering with itself, creating a pattern on the wall behind it that suggests it exists in multiple states at once. Infinite possibilities coexisting. But the moment you decide to look, when you place a detector to measure which slit the electron goes through, everything changes. Instantly, the wave collapses. The electron is no longer a field of potential. It becomes a single particle, a fixed path, a defined outcome. It goes through one slit or the other, and the interference pattern disappears. What was once possibility becomes certainty. Why? Because something was watching. This is the observer effect, and it is not abstract. Your focused awareness functions in exactly the same way. You are the observer. The quantum field is that wave of infinite potential. And the moment you direct your attention, when you decide something is real, fixed, defined, you collapse that field into a single experience, into the life you are now living. This is not metaphor. This is mechanism. This is how reality stabilizes itself through you. And this is where the paradox begins. The paradox that has kept you feeling stuck for years, maybe for decades. I call it the reality lock paradox, because the very act of looking at your life and defining it as blocked, difficult, lacking what you want, is the exact moment you lock it into that state. Your belief in the problem is not a reaction to reality. It is the event that creates it. You are not discovering a limitation that already exists. You are generating it through the force of your attention. This is why every method you've tried feels like it doesn't work or only works temporarily. Think about it. The affirmations you repeated over and over, even until your throat felt dry, while a deeper part of you was still observing the absence of what you were affirming. The vision boards you stared at, but from the perspective of someone who didn't have those things yet. The internal battles, trying to clear blocks, remove negativity, fight resistance. All of that effort was still observation. You were still standing outside the vault, staring directly at the lock, reinforcing it, saying again and again, "This is strong, this is real, this is keeping me out." And the system, perfect, neutral, precise, simply responds. As you observe, so it becomes. Lock strengthened, system sealed. And this is why trying to remove a block feels so exhausting. Because it's like trying to dry yourself while standing under a waterfall. Every movement reinforces the very condition you're trying to escape. Your focus on the problem becomes the most creative force maintaining it. So pause for a moment and look honestly. Where in your life have you been trying to break through something that you were actually stabilizing the entire time? Because the issue has never been your effort. It has never been your discipline. The issue is your position. You have been observing from the outside, looking in, and every attempt to break the lock has only confirmed that position. But everything changes here, because the next step forward has nothing to do with trying harder, or finding a better technique, or using more force. It has everything to do with a shift, a quiet, almost invisible shift, a shift in where you are looking from. The key is not to enter the vault. The key is to realize you were never outside of it. You are already inside. And the moment you begin to observe from that position, everything you thought was fixed begins to respond. Here is the revelation, the one everything pivots around. You are not outside the vault. You have never been outside. You are inside it right now. The life you are currently experiencing, the room you're sitting in, the air you're breathing, the numbers in your bank account, the state of your relationships. This is the vault. This is the system, perfectly sealed, stabilized, and held in place by your own continuous observation. And that feeling you've been calling stuck, that frustration of pushing against something invisible, that sense of hitting a wall that won't move, that is not you being blocked from the outside. That is you pressing against the internal structure of a reality you have already locked into place. You've been trying to escape a room without realizing you were the one who closed the door from the inside. Every effort, every affirmation, every visualization, every attempt to break into a new reality was built on a single misunderstanding. You thought you were somewhere else. You thought you were outside, but you were never outside. You were sending a rescue mission to a place you already occupied. Let that land, because it changes everything. It means the entire story of struggle, the years of feeling blocked, stuck, limited, was built on a phantom premise. The blocks you tried to remove were never solid. They were shadows, cast by the light of your own focused attention. The fight you thought you were in was a fight with your own reflection. You were pushing against the very stability you were creating. There is no wall between you and what you want, because you are not on one side trying to get to the other. You are the awareness that constitutes the entire room, walls included. So the power is not in breaking through, not in forcing, not in fighting what is. That entire paradigm is over. It becomes obsolete the moment you see clearly, because the real power is quieter than that. It is the ability to choose differently, to redirect your observation, like an architect who has already built the structure and simply decides to change the interior. That is your role now, not to keep hammering at the walls of your life. That is what created the exhaustion, the burnout, the feeling that brought you here. The real work is to turn away from the walls entirely, to stop defining yourself by them, and to fully accept your position as the one inside, the only one inside, with complete authority over what happens. Within, you don't need to break anything. You simply shift your attention. You look at something else. You change the internal atmosphere. You decide that this space, this exact space, will now feel different. Peace instead of anxiety. Abundance instead of lack. Ease instead of resistance. And as that internal state shifts, the system responds. The structure itself begins to reconfigure around your new observation. This is the master key. This is how manifestation works, without struggle, without blocks. You stop reinforcing them. You stop acknowledging them. You recognize that you are already inside the system, and you change the internal program. You stop playing the role of the one trapped and step into the one who designed the entire space. And now consider this. What if every challenge you've ever faced wasn't evidence that you were locked out, but proof that you were inside, touching the exact limits you set? What if every pattern that refused to change wasn't a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of your power? Because the system has never been broken. It has been responding with absolute precision to your steady, unwavering observation of this is how things are. And the moment you see that, something shifts at the deepest level of identity. You are no longer the seeker, trying to get in. You are the one inside, determining what this space becomes. You are no longer waiting for a key to appear. You are the source of the lock itself, the observer whose attention seals the structure. And the moment you stop looking at yourself as someone who is blocked, the moment you stop identifying with that position, the entire effect begins to dissolve. Because the power it had over you was always your own power, just directed in the wrong way. You are the architect, the engineer, the one living inside the creation. And from this moment forward, you will never again mistake the stability of your reality for a prison. You are home. You have always been home. You just forgot that you hold the blueprint. And this truth, it is not just an idea. It is already active in your life, already expressing itself. The system has been leaving you signals, clues, evidence. Everywhere. Patterns, reflections, experiences, what you've been calling problems, are actually signatures. Proof that you are inside the system and always have been. You simply misread them. You thought they were signs of limitation when they were actually signs of control. Now I'm going to show you something, not as theory, but as evidence. 3 distinct signals, what we can call quantum fingerprints, left all over your life. And as you hear them, something deeper than logic will begin to recognize the truth. What was just an idea will start anchoring into your body, into your lived experience. The first fingerprint is the one you've likely struggled with the most, the one that has followed you for years without explanation. Repetitive patterns. Think about that one area of your life that feels like a loop you cannot escape. The same type of relationship, just with a different face. The same cycle of financial pressure, just with different numbers. The same feeling of being overlooked, ignored, unseen, repeating itself in different environments. You've tried to fix it. You've affirmed against it. You've worked on yourself to heal it. And yet, somehow, it returns. Again and again, as consistent as gravity itself. You may have labeled it a block, a curse, a trauma pattern you can't break. But from the perspective of the reality lock, that pattern is not evidence of your limitation. It is undeniable evidence of your power. Because what you're seeing is not failure to change. It is the precision of stabilization. Your ability to hold a reality in place is so strong, so coherent, that the system has no option but to reproduce it with perfect consistency. Over and over again. This is the quantum Zeno effect, not in a lab, but in your life. When a state is observed continuously, it does not evolve. It remains fixed. Your repeated observation of "this always happens to me. There's never enough. I'm always left behind" acts as a constant measurement, a continuous broadcast. You are holding that version of reality in place through the sheer intensity of your attention. So the pattern is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a monument to how precisely your focus shapes what is real. It is your power applied in a direction you didn't realize you were choosing. And when you see it clearly, it stops being a cage. It becomes a structure you've built and maintained with extraordinary consistency. The stability of the problem is the proof of the stability of your power. Now the second fingerprint. This is the one that confuses almost everyone. Receiving the opposite of what you are trying to create. You spend weeks focusing on abundance, visualizing wealth, feeling into success, and then suddenly, an unexpected bill appears. Large, disruptive, out of nowhere. Or you pour your attention into love, a firm connection, imagine a relationship, and instead, you experience rejection, distance, loss. And in that moment, it feels like everything is working against you. Like the system is broken, or worse, like it's mocking you. But this is not failure. This is accuracy. The system is reflecting your true point of observation with absolute precision. Because the system does not respond to what you say. It does not respond to the images you try to hold. It responds to the deeper signal, the total state you are actually in. When you were visualizing abundance, were you truly observing from a place of having, or were you standing in a state of lack, trying to fix it? Because if your internal state was still, "I don't have enough," then that is the signal being broadcast. That is the frequency being held. And the system, being perfectly responsive, delivers an experience that matches it exactly. Not your words, but your state. That unexpected bill is not random. It is a mirror. The same with love. When you affirmed connection, were you rooted in wholeness, or were you trying to fill an absence? Because if the deeper observation was loneliness, then that is what the system locks into place. And it reflects it back as more absence, more distance, more confirmation, not as punishment, but as feedback, pure feedback. The system is not against you. It is revealing you to yourself. These wrong manifestations are the most precise diagnostic tool you have. They show you, without distortion, exactly where your observation is anchored. They prove that the system is active, listening, and responding all the time. Without exception, 100% accuracy, no mistakes. And once you see that, something shifts. Because now you're not guessing anymore. You're seeing the mechanism directly. And from that clarity, you can begin to change it. And then there is the third signal, the one most people overlook, because it doesn't come with struggle, it comes quietly. Subtle, almost easy to dismiss. Those brief, unexplainable moments of peace. You felt them. You're driving, not thinking about anything in particular, and suddenly, for a few seconds, something shifts. A wave of calm moves through you. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just undeniable. Everything feels okay. Even if nothing in your external world has changed, the problems are still there. The responsibilities haven't disappeared. The situation is exactly the same. And yet, for that moment, the weight is gone. It can happen in the shower, or in that space just before sleep, where your thoughts loosen their grip. A quiet sense that somehow, everything is fine. And most people ignore it. They explain it away. A random mood. A glitch. Just noise in the system. But it isn't. Those moments are not accidents. They are signals. They are the clearest evidence of what is actually happening beneath your everyday experience. Because in those moments, something very specific occurs. You stop observing the problem. Not intentionally. Not as a technique. It just drops. Your attention releases its grip on the lock. You stop staring at the walls. You're not affirming. You're not trying. You're not fixing anything. You simply stop defining your reality as something that needs to be solved. And in that gap, something extraordinary happens. The system resets. It returns to its natural state. Not constrained. Not collapsed. But open. Coherent. Whole. That feeling of peace is not something you created. It's what was already there, underneath everything you've been holding in place. It's the baseline. The default layer of the quantum field before it gets shaped by focused observation. It's what remains when you stop reinforcing the story. It's like the system finally takes a breath, the moment you loosen your grip. And in that breath, you remember, not with your mind, but with your body. This is what you are without the narrative. This peace is not foreign. It's familiar. It's home, your natural state, before you began observing everything as a problem. And here's the part most people miss. You don't need to chase that feeling. You don't need to recreate it. You don't need to wait for it to happen again. You can return to it simply by shifting where you are looking from. Because those moments are not random. They are invitations, reminders, signals from the system itself, showing you who you are when you are not holding the lock in place. And when you step back and look at all three signals together, the patterns that repeat, the manifestations that seem wrong, and these quiet moments of peace, you begin to see something undeniable. None of it is random. None of it is working against you. It is all feedback. Precise, consistent, perfect. Every experience you have is a reflection of where your observation is anchored. There are no obstacles, only information. There is no resistance, only a mirror reflecting your current state back to you. And once you begin to see your life through that lens, everything starts to reorganize. Because now, instead of reacting, you're reading the system. You're recognizing the signals. You're seeing the design. So take a moment. Let this settle. Which of these signals feels most familiar to you? Which one just reframed years of your life in a single instant? Because that moment, that recognition, that shift is where everything begins to change. And if you're ready, not just to understand this, but to feel it, to move it out of your mind and into your body, then this is where we go deeper. And then there is the third signal, the one most people overlook, because it doesn't come with struggle, it comes quietly, subtle, almost easy to dismiss. Those brief, unexplainable moments of peace. You felt them. You're driving, not thinking about anything in particular, and suddenly, for a few seconds, something shifts. A wave of calm moves through you. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just undeniable. Everything feels okay. Even if nothing in your external world has changed, the problems are still there. The responsibilities haven't disappeared. The situation is exactly the same. And yet, for that moment, the weight is gone. It can happen in the shower, or in that space just before sleep, where your thoughts loosen their grip. A quiet sense that somehow, everything is fine. And most people ignore it. They explain it away. A random mood. A glitch. Just noise in the system. But it isn't. Those moments are not accidents. They are signals. They are the clearest evidence of what is actually happening beneath your everyday experience. Because in those moments, something very specific occurs. You stop observing the problem. Not intentionally. Not as a technique. It just drops. Your attention releases its grip on the lock. You stop staring at the walls. You're not affirming. You're not trying. You're not fixing anything. You simply stop defining your reality as something that needs to be solved. And in that gap, something extraordinary happens. The system resets. It returns to its natural state. Not constrained, not collapsed, but open, coherent, whole. That feeling of peace is not something you created. It's what was already there, underneath everything you've been holding in place. It's the baseline. The default layer of the quantum field before it gets shaped by focused observation. It's what remains when you stop reinforcing the story. It's like the system finally takes a breath, the moment you loosen your grip. And in that breath, you remember, not with your mind, but with your body. This is what you are without the narrative. This peace is not foreign. It's familiar. It's home, your natural state, before you began observing everything as a problem. And here's the part most people miss. You don't need to chase that feeling. You don't need to recreate it. You don't need to wait for it to happen again. You can return to it simply by shifting where you are looking from. Because those moments are not random. They are invitations, reminders, signals from the system itself, showing you who you are when you are not holding the lock in place. And when you step back and look at all three signals together, the patterns that repeat, the manifestations that seem wrong, and these quiet moments of peace, you begin to see something undeniable. None of it is random. None of it is working against you. It is all feedback. Precise, consistent, perfect. Every experience you have is a reflection of where your observation is anchored. There are no obstacles, only information. There is no resistance, only a mirror reflecting your current state back to you. And once you begin to see your life through that lens, everything starts to reorganize. Because now, instead of reacting, you're reading the system. You're recognizing the signals. You're seeing the design. So take a moment. Let this settle. Which of these signals feels most familiar to you? Which one just reframed years of your life in a single instant? Because that moment, that recognition, that shift is where everything begins to change. And if you're ready, not just to understand this, but to feel it, to move it out of your mind and into your body, then this is where we go deeper. It's one thing to look at the blueprint of a house, to admire the design, to understand it intellectually. But it's something entirely different to step inside, to feel the ground beneath your feet, and realize you are already home. And that's where we're going now. We're no longer going to observe this system from the outside. We're going to occupy it fully from within. So if it feels safe, gently close your eyes. And if not, just soften your gaze. Take a slow, deliberate breath in, and as you exhale, let go of the role you've been carrying. The seeker, the one trying to fix, the one trying to figure it out. Let it dissolve. There is nothing to solve right now, only something to experience. Bring your awareness into your body, into this moment. Feel where your body meets the chair, the floor, the space around you. Notice the temperature on your skin. Listen to the subtle sounds that were always there. The distant movement, the quiet hum, even the sound of your own breath. This is your current reality, not held in place by force, but by your own steady, consistent observation. This is the system responding perfectly to you. Now, instead of resisting this reality, instead of trying to push against it, do something different. Feel it with your awareness, not your hands. Gently reach out and sense the edges of what you've created. Feel the boundary of your financial reality. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just notice it. Its shape, its texture. This is something you have observed into form. Now shift your attention to your health. Feel its current range, its limits, its sensations. Not as a problem, but as information. You are simply becoming aware of your own architecture. Now move to your relationships. The patterns, the emotions, the dynamics. See them not as obstacles, but as details like the design of a room you once chose. And now, feel something deeper. These boundaries are not walls keeping you out. They are the edges of a reality holding you in place, stabilizing your experience. They are not prison walls. They are the structural beams of what you've built from your past attention. And for a moment, allow yourself to feel gratitude, not for what they are, but for what they've done. They've been consistent, precise, unwavering. They've reflected you perfectly. Now, let those boundaries fade from your awareness. Gently turn your focus away from the edges and into the space within. And notice there is something here that was never confined. A vast, open, untouchable space inside everything. This is your inner world. And here, you are completely free. The outer reality may reflect what you've already stabilized, but in this space, you have full authority. Right now, you can choose how this space feels. You can choose peace. You can choose abundance. You can choose wholeness without needing a reason. Because the walls never dictated the feeling. You did. You are the one who sets the atmosphere, the sole occupant, the architect of this internal space. Feel that. The external system may appear fixed, but your internal state is fluid, responsive, entirely yours to shape. This is your control center. This is where everything begins. You are not trapped. You are in command. And now, bring your awareness to your hand, the palm. Notice any sensation, warmth, a subtle pulse, maybe a faint vibration. Something is forming there. A presence, gathering, becoming real. A light, taking shape. Feel it more clearly now. This is the key. Not something outside of you. Not something you have to find. It has always been here. Formed from your own awareness. Feel its weight. Its design. It fits you perfectly. It was made for you by you. And notice, it doesn't feel like a tool for struggle. It feels like certainty. Because you are not someone trying to escape. You are the one who built the door, holding the key by choice. Let that realization settle. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to rush. You can turn this key whenever you decide. And the feeling that comes with that is not urgency. It is calm authority, quiet control. Hold that. Let it move through your body, through every cell. This is your new baseline. This is what was always true. And when you're ready, slowly return your awareness to the space around you. Take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, Open your eyes. You're back. But something is different now. So ask yourself, what is the one word that describes this feeling? Peace, power, certainty. Whatever it is, claim it. Because that is who you are now. Not someone searching, but someone who understands the system. This is not an affirmation. This is function. You are no longer using force to break something that was never there. You are using awareness as the key to shape and stabilize the reality you choose. The architect does not fight the structure. The architect defines it. This is not an affirmation. It's not something you repeat to convince yourself. This is function. This is how you operate now. Your tool is no longer force. It is no longer effort. You are not here to swing a hammer at walls that were never real. You are here to use a key, the key of your own awareness, not to escape a system, but to consciously design it. To engage the very locks that stabilize your reality with precision. Because an architect does not fight the structure. The architect defines it. And to do that, there are protocols, not steps you memorize, but modes of operation you step into. The first protocol is what we call the observation audit. Before anything is built, the architect studies the land, the terrain, the foundation, the materials already present. Your consciousness is that land. So for the next 24 hours, your only role is simple, but not easy. You become the silent observer of your own attention. Carry something with you, a notebook, or just your phone. And throughout your day, with complete honesty, notice where your awareness goes. What are you reinforcing right now? When you speak to someone, do you default into complaining about your work? In that moment, you are not expressing, you are locking dissatisfaction into place. When you check your bank account, does your body tighten, even slightly? That contraction is not harmless. It is you pouring concrete into the structure of scarcity. When your mind drifts to a relationship, do you replay old arguments, old tensions, familiar pain? You are not remembering. You are reactivating the lock of conflict. And this is where most people go wrong. They judge themselves. They try to fix it instantly. But that's not the point. This is not about judgment. This is data. Pure data. The architect does not look at land and say it's wrong. They observe so they can build effectively. So for one full day, you are gathering blueprints. The real blueprints of the reality you've already constructed, consciously or unconsciously. Watch the patterns, the repeated thoughts, the automatic emotional reactions, the stories you tell yourself and others. These are not random. These are the structural beams of your current vault. This practice may seem simple, but it is foundational. This is where manifestation without struggle actually begins. Because now, you're no longer guessing. You're seeing your creative power in motion, in real time. And what you will likely discover is unsettling and empowering at the same time. You will begin to see how consistently, how precisely you have been locking into place the very realities you say you don't want. Not once, not occasionally, but repeatedly, automatically, with discipline you didn't even realize you had. And this is the shift. Awareness is the first act of the architect. Without it, nothing changes. But with it, everything becomes visible. And once it becomes visible, it becomes editable. And this is exactly where most people fall back into the same loop without even realizing it. Because the moment you begin to understand your power, there's a natural impulse that arises. You want to focus on what you want. You start picturing the new car, the relationship, the success, the version of life you've been trying to reach. It feels right. It feels aligned. But this is where the old paradigm quietly re-enters and pulls you back without you noticing. Because the system does not respond to the images you hold in your mind. It does not respond to what you are trying to see. It responds to where you are seeing from. It responds to your point of observation. And this is the part most people miss. You cannot observe a reality of wealth from a state of lack. You cannot observe a reality of love from a state of loneliness. If your internal state is still rooted in "I don't have," then no matter what you visualize, you are still standing outside the vault, looking at a picture of what's inside. And from that position, nothing changes. You are still broadcasting separation, still reinforcing distance, still confirming that you are not there. And the system responds accordingly. This is why the inside-out focus becomes essential, not as a technique, but as a shift in position. For a moment, you stop chasing the external image entirely. You release the need to see the outcome, and instead, you move inward. Your only focus becomes this: How does it feel to already be there? Not intellectually, not as imagination, but as a state you generate right now. You don't focus on having abundance. You generate the feeling of stability, of ease, of freedom within your own system. You don't visualize the perfect partner. You cultivate the feeling of being seen, valued, loved, without needing anyone to confirm it. And this is the master key. Because the moment the feeling becomes real inside you, your point of observation shifts. You are no longer outside the vault looking in. You are inside it, experiencing from within. And from that position, everything begins to change. Your observation carries a different signal, a different coherence, a different directive. And the system, perfectly responsive, begins to reorganize itself around that new internal state. Not slowly, not randomly, but precisely, inevitably, because it has no other option. The external world must align with the position from which you observe it. This is not belief. This is law. And now, this is where everything becomes deliberate. This is where you stop being someone who observes and become someone who creates with intention. The third protocol is the conscious lock-in. Not theory, not philosophy, a direct application of how reality stabilizes itself through repeated observation. This is the quantum Zeno effect, no longer something happening in a lab, but something you use intentionally. It's simple. 5 minutes a day. That's all it takes. Find a quiet space, somewhere undisturbed. Close your eyes and return inward. Begin exactly where you learned, inside out. Generate the feeling first. Not by force, not by pretending, but by allowing it to rise. Peace, fulfillment, love, wholeness. Let it build slowly until it fills your body, until it becomes dominant, until it feels natural, real. And then, once that state is fully alive within you, you introduce the image. Not before. Now you see it. You step into it. You experience the reality that matches this state. You don't watch it like a movie. You inhabit it. You feel it, touch it, move inside it, as if it is already done. But here is the step most people miss. The moment where everything either dissolves or becomes real. You don't let the feeling fade. You don't open your eyes and return to uncertainty. You make a decision. A clear, grounded, final decision. You look at that internal reality and you declare, not out loud, but from a place deeper than thought, this is my observed reality now. The system is locked, and you feel the weight of that, the stillness of it, the finality, not hope, not desire, not waiting, a command, a quiet, undeniable command directed into the structure of the quantum field itself. And in that moment, something shifts, because you are no longer asking. You are not trying. You are not becoming. You are defining. And reality responds. If this shifted something in you, even slightly, don't just scroll past it. Stay with it. Let it anchor. And if you're ready to go deeper into this level of awareness, just leave a quiet signal. Subscribe to the channel. Not as a habit, but as a choice. A choice to keep exploring what you're beginning to remember.